Good afternoon. Welcome to Grinding and Polishing here at National Flooring Equipment's virtual trade show. I'm Tom Griffin, joined by Dave Bigham today, and we're here to talk about grinding and polishing.
Welcome, you guys. Tom's going to do a little bit of explanation on all of the versatility of National's grinders. There's a ton of tooling. What's it for? How to use it? What's the best application for it? Tom's going to go over some of that, and then we're going to do some live demos. We're probably not going to actually polish. That's a pretty time-consuming process. But if there's something that's logged on, we encourage you guys to chat up questions. Even if you're getting ahead of us, if it's a question that you think we might skip over, go ahead and send in the question, and we'll answer your questions. That's what we're here for. And then we are going to actually run the grinders that are behind us. So, Tom, you want to take it away?
Yep, will do. And there's a lot of tooling on the table here. We've got it separated into our planetary tooling and some of our counter-rotational tooling, not all of it. So I'm going to go over it. It's probably going to feel like a lot. It's probably going to feel pretty quick. We have a really substantial YouTube video. It's like 30 minutes long of me going piece by piece, explaining tooling and application. So don't feel like you have to get everything out of this today. We've got some great references for you online. And Dave and I and all the other RSMs and our customer care are always a phone call away to answer questions. So without further ado, let's get started. I think a great place to start with is prep. That's the first step, even if you're going to be polishing. And we'll start over here on the planetary side of the table. With our smaller machines, our 8274-4 and our Helix, especially if you've got hard concrete like we have here in our warehouse, a great place to start is with our Super Seg. Diamonds are constructed, all of these are constructed pretty much the same way. You've got a metal matrix with diamonds embedded in there. The matrix can be hard, medium, or soft, and then your diamond has a grit count, just like sandpaper. So this diamond is a super soft bond, and it's 25 grit. What that means is this diamond is designed to wear away very quickly as you're grinding, and to expose those diamonds, which are a very aggressive grit, very aggressive size. And what that helps you do is open up the concrete quickly. So you're not going to be doing a whole garage with these. We don't recommend it. It's the most expensive way to prep a garage. But do you want to take that up for them to see? So what you do with this is you would put these on the machines and do a pretty quick pass. So, having a cut into the top of the concrete, every couple of inches, every inch or two. And what that's going to do is make all of your following steps that much more effective, because it allows the 16 grits or the 30 grits to actually cut into the concrete. So like I said, this one's a super soft bond. It's going to dissolve away. After that, if we're talking about prep, I would recommend doing a 16 and then a 30. When we're talking about prep too, you also have to think about what you're going to be putting down. And every manufacturer out there is going to tell you what surface profile, CSP, you have to have. So usually when we're talking about grinding, you're looking at a 1 or a 2. To go anything more than that with a grinder, you're going to be spending a lot of time grinding, and it's not going to look very pretty, and it's better to do a shop blaster.
So if you guys have questions about CSP profile with International Concrete Repair Institute comparator chips, there's some really technical sides to grinding and polishing. We don't want to get too technical in this short introduction to National's grinding and polishing, but I encourage you guys to reach out. We certainly are willing to do live one-on-one individual trainings. Even if you guys want to learn how to polish from start to finish using juices, we can do that, but that's a little difficult with a pretty broad audience that we have logged on. So keep that in mind. Feel free to reach out, chat in your request if you want additional training, or if you want some higher tech training, if you want to learn about Mohs Hardness Testers, we can do all that. And sorry to interrupt, Tom.
Nope,
just
you're
trying
good.
to be helpful.
So
this is the the 16 grit full bar that Tom was talking about. This is a medium bond.
And what's important to know is when you guys are buying your diamonds, Dave just mentioned the hardness test. It's imperative that you know the hardness of the concrete that you're going to be grinding. So when we sell these, Dave said it's a medium bond. We sell soft bonds. We also have hard bond. Hard bond goes with soft concrete. Soft bond goes with hard concrete because you want to expose those diamonds much more rapidly when you're grinding. So medium for medium. So if you're trying to grind hard concrete with a soft or with a hard bond diamond, you're going to glaze the diamond. It's not going to do anything. So it's always opposite. Hard concrete, soft bond diamond. So full bars, if you're noticing that these aren't cutting very well, we also make half bar diamonds that you can step down to. So it's also a head pressure issue of...
Here, let's do a comparison.
The more surface area on the bottom of the diamonds, the less PSI you have. So if you're noticing that maybe you're not cutting into the concrete as well, having a diamond with less actual physical head space, so going to a half bar versus a full bar, you're going to have increased PSI, which is going to allow you to be more effective in grinding, especially great with the Helix for surface prep. So,
Question, great.
Question.
Thanks. Keep them coming.
From Carlos thinks it's very cool that you are also a professionally trained chef.
So for those of you who don't know, I am a professionally trained chef. That was part of my background. And Carlos asked what I love to cook for my customers. I actually haven't cooked for any of my customers yet. So I think when all of this is over, we're going to have people up here for training. And I think a fun big barbecue. We talked about doing a shrimp boil before this. I think something like that would be fun, communal. Jokingly, I said I would do a Bananas Foster's demonstration just so I could light some stuff on fire for everybody. But if you want to see that, you're going to have to reach out to the marketing team and let them know that that's a demanded segment for the trade show.
So Tom might not be cooking for his customers, but I guarantee you that for his friends and colleagues, just this morning I saw sourdough English muffins.
Sourdough English muffins.
Came in the door, and I couldn't wait to cut into one. They were absolutely amazing. And he did not buy them at the store. He made them. They were just phenomenal. So I suggest you make friends with Tom if you're a customer.
Yep, and I will always gladly talk to you about food. It's one of my big passions outside of concrete grinding and surface prep. So getting back to where we're going, 16 grit followed by a 30 grit. The 30 grit is going to be a great way to smooth out any deep cuts that you've made with the 16 grit or the super sags with the 25 grit. Oftentimes, coatings, when you're just talking about prepping concrete for a coating, you're stopping at the 16s or stopping at the 30s if you're going to be doing a thinner milk coat or a product that's not really self-leveling. Anything beyond this is when we're looking and talking more about doing a prep for a grind and seal or the polishing process. So after the 30 grit, we're going to be moving up to a transitional diamond. And these are pie-shaped diamonds. As you can see, there's a lot more surface area on the front of these diamonds. So with that being said, you have a lot less pressure coming down onto the concrete from these diamonds. So they really help to smooth out any of those deep cuts or scratches that you've got. That's especially important if you're doing like a clear grind and seal. Your customers don't want to see those deep scratches. So using these transitional diamonds, on the national side, ours go all the way up to a 120 grit, which
Correct.
is a pretty fine grit, and we'll leave it looking very smooth. Great way to achieve a faux polish.
Correct. Perfect.
So those are the diamonds, and that covers prep, but it also covers prepping for the polishing process. After you do the transitional diamonds, you'd be moving up into all of our resin pads here, and you would use a Velcro adapter like this. So it has the same trapezoidal. I don't know if you want to show that.
Yeah, and these actually come with the machine. This is the Velcro adapters. So it has Velcro on one side, if you guys see, it's got the same shape as the back of a diamond, so it magnetically affixes to the bottom of the machine.
Yep, makes very easy to switch between the steps. And the magnets on the bottom of these machines are very strong. Unless you're really fighting against removing some sort of crazy adhesive or a thick coating, you're probably not going to have to bolt the actual diamonds into the machine.
But each diamond that you order comes with a fixing bolts if you were to need them. Certainly feel free to use them if you need to.
Safety first. So when we're talking about transitioning, in the polishing process, we're doing 30s, we could do 50s, and then we're going to switch from 50 transitionals over to a 50 resin pad. And then we're going to go from 50s all the way up to 3000s. And they're Velcro backed, 5-inch pads, they just Velcro right on there. And these are also impregnated with diamonds, so it's really easy to see in the 50s. You can see those diamonds. They're just like a heavier grit.
You can see it in the light.
But when you move up to the 3000s, you really don't see them anymore. But the resins, as they're working and polishing and cutting into that floor, that resin is also getting hot and getting into the pores of the concrete and really sealing it in and giving you that polish. So with our 8274-4 and certainly with our GP700, you can get all the way up to a mirror finish polish. When we're talking about the Helix, we really built this to be a great small prep machine, but you can get up to a 300, 400 level Walmart floor shine in a polishing process. These machines are so much more than just polishing though. We sell lots of different tooling, and Dave can bring some of these up to show you guys. Carbide chips, PCDs, these are great for cutting through glues, cutting through any epoxy that's down, an old failing chip coat that might be on the garage that the guy didn't do the correct prep in the first place for. These just cut, and we sell different aggressiveness levels of these, especially the PCDs of this tooling. So these half domes that we have here are the least aggressive. We also have micro PCDs that are much more aggressive. And there are certain situations where you may not want to use those, or you may have to. So having a bunch of these in your arsenal is key. You don't want to get to a job site and think that carbides are always going to do the job on an epoxy when it might be a really thick coat and a PCD might be a better choice. Braised diamonds are another option we have. We have the trapezoids as well as the 5-inch discs. Braised diamonds are a great, very, very fast way to prep a surface. They're also a very expensive way to do it. So if the job demands that time savings to get in and out where you can charge more for it, these are a great tool to have to be able to get in and out. They're also really good for coatings removal. And we sell the different ones. The 5-inch discs are great if you're on concrete that's very flat. But as Dave knows, out in the real world, concrete is pretty much far from level. So that's where we sell these trapezoidal shaped ones, because putting 6 of these on the bottom allow the grinder to flex and to get down into those highs and lows.
Perfect.
I think all that's, well, actually, we've got a little bit more. Forgot how versatile these machines are, Dave. The Helix has a Scarifier kit, which is unique to it, and this is a really great piece of tooling. So on the Helix, there are 3 passive planetary heads that you can pull off and replace them with these 3 Scarifier tooling holders. And these TSR cutters are going to leave kind of very small shot blast-like appearance.
Yeah, a very shot blast-like profile, very similar to that.
Yep, but phenomenal for removing paint from a floor. Warehouse settings, guys paint safety lines. This tooling just rips the paint off the floor. There's not another grinder like this on the market that has that. The kit that's special for the Helix comes with 3 of those, as well as a rubber band that allows the floating head to actually get down and give the protection on the floor that's needed. The 5-inch discs also work with sandpaper. So I know I would actually probably rather have Dave talk about this because he's already done this. It's something I've never done, is using the Helix on wood floors.
So I have a 25-year-old daughter, so you guys all know that I'm 30 now. She bought her first starter home in Oklahoma City, and she ripped up her nasty old carpet in her home when she moved in, and to her pleasant surprise, there was 3/4 inch oak floor underneath that. So we actually took, because guys are always asking me, hey Dave, can I refinish wood floors or can I do decks? Well, National says you can, but I've actually never done it because we're pretty much concrete. So I told her, I said, I tell you what, I'll bring it back and I'll bring a machine and some sandpaper, and we started and refinished these floors from this house that was probably built in 1940, and it's probably had carpet stapled to it for 25 years. They turned out absolutely beautiful. And I am not a wood floor finishing guy. I've tore up a lot of wood floor in my history, but I can tell you that the Helix certainly and most definitely will work on wood decks, wood floors, and if you want to refinish old wood floors. So a quick review while I have the mic.
Yep.
Tom talked about a lot of stuff. National is super excited about grinding, and so are my customers, and let me tell you guys why. Your return on your investment for a grinder is amazingly easy to achieve. Tom's talked about the ability to grind and polish with these machines behind me. Can put 1-inch carbides for taking up glue and mastic. Can put PCDs of all different kinds for taking up really thick coatings or thin set. We've talked about wood floors. We've talked about just prep. We've talked about faux polish. There's so many things that you can, there's so many accessories and so many options that you can solve problems Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every day is a different challenge for a contractor. So with these grinders and the work that National's put into scarifying attachments and PCDs, it's amazing because you can say, yes, I can do that. Same tool, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. It makes it so much easier for you to recoup that money. I'm always talking about how much I love shop blasters. So people think I don't like grinders. That's not true at all. If you're a mechanic, you always have to have more than one tool in your toolbox. So nobody just has a shop blaster. Nobody just has a grinder. But if you had to choose a tool, a grinder is a super versatile tool for a contractor that needs a lot of tools to solve a lot of different problems. That's part of the reason why I get excited about grinders. There's a lot of grinders out there, but I can tell you guys honestly, go out and look, go search. You're not going to find 110 volt grinders with this many options. Like the 8274-4, it's a variable speed, soft start, single belt, so it's the maintenance is super simple and the belt is self-tensioning. These kind of things you're just not going to find out there. National has found the niche market for the guys that don't need a gigantic grinder, but they still need to solve a lot of problems and they have a budget. We have an answer for that.
Yep, exactly, Dave.
Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about the tooling for the counter-rotational?
So our bigger grinders are counter-rotational, so our GP700, our GP3000. Guys are going to look at that machine and they're going to say, that can't polish. I disagree. From the moment these machines were conceived, they were conceived to polish terrazzo, which is one of the hardest substances known to mankind. So if it can polish terrazzo, why can't it polish concrete?
Correct. So early on when polishing first came out, it was actually done with counter-rotational machines. But as planetary machines hit the market, sales guys ran around the planet saying, oh, those are too big and heavy, you can't polish with them. It's a great believable lie, but it's not true. I can polish just as well. I think the biggest difference is your first cut in this industry. We tend to quote unquote that as your money cut. It's the slowest, hardest part of the job when it comes to either prep or polish. These heavy machines, like this one has 440 pounds of head pressure on it. Let me tell you, I can do that first step just like ringing a bell all day long, and then I can still get the same polish just as good as any planetary grinder on the market.
Yep. So when we talk about tooling for the counter-rotational series, a lot of the same things that we have over here on the planetary side, we also have for the counter-rotational machines. There's a couple of different style of tools that we have, though, for the counter-rotational. So what I've got here in my hand is a puck diamond. So very similar to the transitional diamonds that we have over here. These are going to spread out that surface pressure and allow you to get really nice, even, smooth cuts into the concrete. If you're looking for something that's more aggressive, we also sell wedge style tooling. And National's tried to make it really easy. If you look in our catalog that our marketing team has spent a lot of time on, that Dave spent a lot of time on, we sell prep and polish packages from start to finish. It tells you exactly what you need, exactly what the order is for all of the tooling. So it says 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s, and 0s if you really need to go that aggressive. And we've made it really simple for you guys to understand what is needed for this machine to get the job done. So check that out. There's a couple different things too when we're talking about the resin pads on the counter-rotationals. We have the Velcro adapter, which is going to hold the tooling to the machine. But there's this ingenious, and I think this is the lippage holder. I always say it wrong.
It's the lippage holder, but I'm an old school guy, if you guys can't tell by the gray hair. We called them sacrificial wafers. And the reason why we called them that for so many years is this was all that existed at first, was this tooling adapter that fits on the bottom of the machine. Well, it's metal, it's hard, it's steel. So you would, in the day, put your polishing pad on this and put your Walkman on. I think I just lost half the audience when I said Walkman. And you're listening to Guns N' Roses, and you're just thinking about your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you're hard at work. And this resin pad wears all the way to the steel, and you're on 1500s. Now you have scratched your floor, and you can't just fix that. You have to back all the way back up to get rid of those scratches. So somebody out there, I don't know who, I'd give them credit, they came up with this lippage holder, which I call a sacrificial wafer. It actually has Velcro on both sides, and then you put your resin pad on there. So what happens is when I'm listening to my Guns N' Roses and daydreaming about getting off work and doing whatever it is I'm going to do, this is very soft plastic. So I'll see these real big black marks on the floor, and I'll be like, uh-oh, shut the machine off. Well, I've wore away the resin pad to my sacrificial wafer, which is plastic, not steel. Well, that's an easy fix. Get another resin pad, put it on there, back up a little bit, and the black marks just go away just like they were never there. So if you guys don't know about this and you guys have any other kind of grinder, even if it's not a Nationals, get yourself a set right away.
We've got a question over here.
Questions? That is a great question.
So the question,
So the question is, do you have to seal your polished floor? The answer to that is technically no, but I would highly, we don't sell juices. Doesn't matter to National whose brand that you choose for hardener densifier or a lithium protective finish. But what happens is your protective finish over the top that you burnish in, not buff, you use a burnisher with a burnishing pad, is it creates a barrier that helps with stain resistance. And what happens is, I'll give you guys an example. If I spill my 7-Eleven coffee, Starbucks for you guys that have more money than me, if I spill my 7-Eleven coffee and I get distracted and I come back in 2 hours, if I haven't sealed that floor, the chances are there's going to be a coffee stain that's soaked into the pores of the floor. If I've put a protective finish, which I typically refer to as a lithium protective finish that's burnished in, I can spill that coffee and it's going to sit on there for a very long time. I can come and clean it up without staining the floor. I told you guys I'm an old school guy. I took auto body and fender repair in high school, and the first car I painted, I couldn't afford the clear coat, so I just painted the car. And every time I washed or waxed it, all my rags and my hands turned red because the car was red, because I was actually waxing the paint off. And there was nothing to protect it. If I touched it with dirty hands, my car would actually get grease into the paint. Concrete's the same way. It's a giant sponge. So as you're polishing, you're tightening up those pores, and you're trying to keep it You're trying to keep it sealed. That lithium protective finish fills in any last little bit of porosity, and it gives you a protective barrier. So the answer is no, but there's also the aesthetics. I can take a section of floor, 10 foot here, 10 foot here, and do the same process. And if I burnish and put a protective finish on this 10 feet, your light reflectivity and the evenness of the floor is definitely better. You will find that resin pads is a fancy word for plastic. This is plastic with little bitty pieces of diamonds. So with the weight of the machine and the RPM and the heat, you tend to leave resin marks. You leave the plastic on the floor, and you can kind of see that in your finish. Your protective finish and burnishing removes that, so you have a solid, nice, beautiful reflective finish, whether that's at 400 or at 3000.
Well, and I think you brought up a good point there, Dave. When National developed its polishing processes, we developed it to play nice with all of the manufacturers out there that make densifiers and make finishing liquids and top coats, because we didn't want to just stick with one individual thing as part of our system. So whoever you end up buying from, the important part is to ask your rep or read the instructions. They're going to tell you between which grit you need to apply the densifier and then when you need to apply the stain. So if you're talking about polishing and doing a stain, something I learned this year, because here when we do demos, we do a lot of water-based or acetone-based stains. And those are typically put on later in the polishing process when you're up into your resins right around the 200 mark. Acid stains have to go on a lot earlier than that, and I didn't know that. And so we had a customer that was having issues with the floor. They thought it could be our grinder. I went in and looked, and I said, well, the grinder's performing as it should, but it turns out that they had brought up the floor all the way up to what we usually would do with a water-based color or stain, and they really should have done it much earlier in the process. So any rep worth their salt on the coatings and juice side of this business will be able to tell you exactly when in this polishing process you need to apply their products.
Perfect. Tom's exactly right. Everybody's different, and we're not, we encourage you to work with whoever you want to, and we can help you with that and give you suggestions or let you talk to contractors and ask them who they're using and what their experience has been. But we just sell the equipment and the ancillary products to go with it. We don't sell hardener densifiers or top coats. I certainly recommend it. It's really part of the process, but it's not something that National actually sells to end users.
Yep.
Tom, do you want to run some equipment? Or?
I think if we don't have any more questions on the equipment side, I think now's a good time to talk about our grinders and run some equipment.
So are we going to take a commercial break, or do you just want to? We're just going to move the table, and so which way you want to go, Tom? That way? Okay.
Way, yep.
Mind the gap.
Mind the cord.
You want to start with the smallest and work our way up?
Yeah.
So this is a National designed and built in America, made in America. Oh, and if we didn't say already, let me tell you guys that everything here that you guys see and everything that's behind you that you can't see is for sale. If you guys have questions about pricing or anything, just chat in and we'll get you a response straight away. We're going to talk about the Helix. This is a 110 volt, 2-speed, counter-rotational, or no, I'm sorry, passive planetary. Sorry, I was thinking about the 700.
700 is my favorite polisher, but that's a me thing.
That means this plate spins this way, and these smaller plates just spin in the direction of least resistance. You can also remove these by just pulling a pin and put your diamonds directly on the Grind and Scrape Deluxe plate.
That would also be where you want to put any of your directional tooling, like carbide chips or PCDs.
Right on the main plate.
For coatings removal.
So, Tom, tell me what you think so fascinating about this machine.
What I love about this machine is that you can use it for prep work, you can use it to polish up to a small level, but here in Colorado, we have a lot of basements, and a lot of guys want a prepped floor in their man cave, so to speak, but you're not going to be carrying a GP700 down the basement stairs. This machine is modular, meaning the head comes off of the handle assembly, so you're actually able to pull the machine apart and carry it down in pieces. I can manage this part on my own. That part might still be heavy. What's also great is we have removable weights. So you've got removable weights on top. You've got another 50-pound weight internally underneath the grind and scrape plate. So it really, if you've got a one-man operation, this machine makes it very versatile and easy for you to do a job wherever it may be in a home or a backyard with stairs or something like that to get up to the patio. Something that's also great about this machine, the adjustable handle, as Dave is showing you, collapses down for transport, and there's a light underneath there. We know that not every job site out there, in fact, probably most of them, are not very well lit. So you have to be able to see what it is that you're doing. And that's where having the LED light on this back side allows you to see the profile that you're creating as you're doing the grinding. Dave's gonna plug it in, there we go. So you can see the light turns on and off. I love that it's high and low speed. So, you know, high speed is going to be what you would want to use for doing a prep part, so actually cutting into the concrete. I wouldn't recommend high speed if you're trying to do a coatings removal or a glue removal. Heat and glue don't really get along, so the slower you can go, the better. Also as a safety switch, so all of our machines come with that, and it's really important. Even this small machine, I once did a demo with a guy. He thought it was funny. He's like, it's a small machine. I don't have to wear the safety clip. And I'm like, it's my demo. You're going to wear it or you're not going to run the machine. Yep. So he put it on his wrist and he gets going and he lets it fall off of his wrist as he's still running the machine. Well, he knocks it into the wall and all of a sudden the Helix goes out of control. I reached over and just pulled it out and I said, and that, guys, is why you wear the dead man switch or the safety chain.
We'll talk about the edge and plate.
Oh, that's a good one.
So I can get within about 1/8 inch of the wall or closer by flipping this up. And this actually, I can move this entire shroud so I can edge on the left or the right side of the Helix, which I think is amazing. Anybody like to get on their hands and knees and do 7-inch grinder with a shroud edge work?
I certainly don't.
Not me.
No thanks. If you can get me a machine like this that actually makes my life easier, I'm going to do it all day long. This also is a great companion machine. So you might be looking at it and saying, Tom, Dave, the machine is way too small for what I do every day. I need to be able to get in and out and do a couple of garages with grinding every day. Well, that's fine. But this machine can companion with either this one, the 700, or the 3000. Use this to do your edges. Use this to do your tight spaces, and use the bigger machines to do your wide open spaces. You know, you can have a couple guys running machines if you have enough circuits to be able to provide power. Just helps you to get onto the job and get it done faster so you can move on and make some more money.
Do you want to turn it on? You want me to run the vac?
Yeah.
I'm going to kick on our vac, make a little noise.
Let's make a little noise. We're going to turn on the companion vac, which is the DL2000. And I'm going to turn this machine on right here and show you how effective it is. So as I'm going, you know, I'm not going to go very fast. I just wanted to open up, do a nice even grind on this floor. The floor that we're on right now has been polished at some point in the past. The strip I'm coming up on right now was shot blasted by our A30 30-inch shot blaster.
So if you guys can hear me, this concrete has been polished dozens of times, so it's had hardener densifier on top of the fact that it's already hard. This is probably well over 7,000 PSI concrete. This is not soft concrete.
No, and we don't want you guys to think that we're cheating the system with how we do these demos in any way, shape, or form. You know, we want you guys to see the real world performance of our machines. You can see, even if I let this go, this machine has a lot of kick to it. The Helix might be a smaller machine, but it definitely is a prep beast.
You still have 128 pounds of head pressure on this machine.
And with the tooling versatility that we offer for this machine, there's no other small grinder in the 16-inch category or any other size around there that's really going to compete with it and can do as much as this machine can do. As we're doing this, guys, I know it can be a little bit boring watching us run these machines. Grinding's not exactly the most exciting thing to watch. Maybe one step better than paint drying. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. We're happy to answer them. So keep those coming. And we're really here to show you guys and what we can do and what our machines can do. Sorry, hold on. What? Yep, so for the diamonds today, we do have our super segs on the bottom. So we are opening up that concrete, and this is actually leaving some pretty deep lines. And after this, you would have to go to your 16s and then probably your 30s.
If you were trying to smooth the floor out.
If you were trying to smooth the floor out.
If you were just prepping it for an epoxy, we're ready to rock and roll right now. And the specific reason we have 25 super segs is because the concrete here is already, like I said, super hard. And if you guys can see the polish, this sections back here have been polished over and over and over. So it's had hardener densifier applied to it over and over and over and over. So it's super duper hard. I could use 16 grit medium bonds, but it would be much slower. So this is a perfect example of matching your diamonds to the surface that you're profiling. Super hard concrete, I have super soft diamonds on it. If this was just average concrete in a standard garage that I just ran across, I'd probably use a medium bond 16 grit full bar diamond.
Yep.
Next one comes from Michael Dahl. He's asked them to, they said, whether or not covering the floor with glue is a good idea.
All right. So,
He said no, it's easy to use, not mix.
no, so Mike, the question was, using a grinder to prep a floor that already has glue down, is that a good idea or do they not mix? It's actually probably the best way to get the glue off the floor. What I was saying is you want to make sure that you use it on low speed. And a trick that Dave has, especially with our GP700 that has the water tank, is that you can dribble ice water down onto that glue. Probably not with these guys because these are really meant for dry grinding only, but with the GP700 you can do a wet grinding. That's going to keep that temperature down and allow you to actually cut through and scrape that glue off of the surface. If you get too much heat in there, running them at too high of a speed, you warm up that glue and all you're going to do is smear it around and gum up your machine. So the slower, the better when it comes to removing adhesives from concrete.
Can I add to that answer?
Always.
Nick, can you swing the camera over here? So glue removal is probably the biggest problem that the world has when it comes to surface prep. If you guys can see, we were doing ride-on floor scraper demos earlier. This is 3/4 inch solid wood floor that's glued down to this concrete that was prepped. I've re-scraped it with the ride-on scraper, and there's still some glue residue. I would say, if you guys can see how thick that glue is up along where the wood floor is, I would probably answer that glue is almost always a 2-step removal process, almost guaranteed. Usually you have to scarify it first with TSR teeth to get it off the floor, or scrape it with a scraper. Then you can put your grinder or your blaster on it. So where there's just residue here, I could probably use a grinder on low speed. Like Tom said, with the right grinder, you can use ice water, really helps keep it cool. If it was the smaller machines that you wanted to use dry, I would put Portland cement on the floor, just kind of spread it out and sprinkle it. So as it grinds the glue up, it turns it into balls, kind of like grandma making biscuits on the counter. It doesn't stick to the counter. But if you have glue that's super thick, you're probably going to struggle even with 1-inch carbides on a grinder. It's typically you need to remove the bulk first and then come back and try to grind it. If it's a small enough area, you could probably use the PCDs, or even better, the 1-inch carbides, just depending. But it's still a 2-step process most of the time. I hope that answers the question.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move up to the 8274-4. I like this grinder because you're not going to find this anywhere else. This is a 3 horsepower, 388 pound, variable speed, soft start grinding polishing machine. It's basically, I can do it all with this machine. I can polish up to 3,000. You guys see those big, huge grinders on the market that cost $60,000, $70,000? I can polish just as good as them. Not as fast, but just as good. But I can also polish small kitchens, small patios, small basements,
offices.
Commercial offices, places where those big grinders aren't going to get, small bathrooms. Because this is compact and portable, I can get into a lot of places they can't. Now, if the job was over 5,000 square feet, I probably wouldn't take this to grind or polish. It's a little too small for that. But it has a ton of features on it that you're not going to see. The variable speed soft start, that's just a big marquee up in lights. But there's things you can't see, like the 15, 20 amp selector switch on the side of it. If I have any Canadians that might be logged in, you guys are with me when you feel the struggle with American equipment that pulls 20 amps. What does it do in Canada with all their 15 amp breakers? Trips their breakers all day long. It's very frustrating. What about you guys way far on the East Coast where the buildings have been around a little bit longer than me? They also have a lot of those old fuse style 15 amp breakers. A lot of these newer machines blow those breakers. This machine actually, I can select the 15 amp and the box will only allow the motor to draw up to 15 amps. If I'm in a newer building like this, I can flip it to 20 and I can draw 20 amps all day long without tripping the fuse. That's a great feature. If you guys have ever been on a job where you're constantly tripping breakers, having that switch is a serious lifesaver, especially if you're on a commercial job, even if it's a small job, but it's a commercial job and you're waiting on a union electrician, this is the way to go. It has 2 weights that are positionable. I find and teach that most of the time, you just need 2 weights down. You don't need all 4. So Dave, why is all 4 down? Well, 1,500 and 3,000 polish, I like to turn my speed up and put the weight down to it because your high-end polish really comes from heat and friction. So the more weight and the more speed, the better my shine's going to be, the better the light reflection's going to be, the light reflectivity. So that's why it's there. It's a variable speed. I can go from 200 to 2,000 RPM, and that's pretty nice because when we were talking about glue just a minute ago, I want to turn my speed way down so I'm not creating a lot of friction and melting the glue. If I'm taking up even glue residue, I'm going to turn my speed down. Usually when I'm polishing, I'm going to turn it up almost all the way once I get to the resins. For everyday grinding, I'm going to be about 3/4 of the full speed, which is about 1,600 RPMs, and that's a great spot that usually works really well, that won't glaze your diamonds, but will keep you speeding right along. I offer this trick if you guys run into a floor that's got tons and tons and tons of hardener sealers, curing compounds, and they've cooked the floor with a trowel and it's black and shiny, and you're struggling to open it up. Throw some 25 super segs on there and just scratch, just break the surface tension. Then switch to a 16 full bond because those 25 super segs are so soft, it'll break that really shiny, really hard to break into floor. Try it works. This machine also has a forward and reverse, and that doesn't mean forward and reverse. That just changed the direction of the planetary, and there's a whole bunch of advantages to that. One, even though this is a planetary machine, in forward it pulls this way, in reverse it pulls this way. So at the end of the day, if I just am in forward like a lot of machines, my back hurts right here, guys. I go home and go, ah. I switch this about every hour, and what does that do? It evens up the pull on my back, so I can go home and go, oh, now both sides of my back hurt. But really what it does is it helps your diamonds wear nice and even. And when I'm coming up or down the wall, I can make the machine push itself into the wall instead of me trying to drive it into the wall. I can choose the direction that it's pushing, either left or right. So if I'm going forward, I'm going to have it going so it's bumping on the wall. And when I go backwards, I'm going to change direction so it's still bumping into the wall, or if I move to the other side. Your handle has got 3 positions, so I can move this whole thing up or down. I can move my height up and down. Questions? If they're glazed, what to do? So there's yes. Great question. Who was that question from? Mike?
Mike. Yep.
Hey, Mike, great question. Thank you so much for interacting. This is to everybody's benefit. If a diamond becomes glazed, there's quite a few things you can do. The easiest thing to do that I've been teaching for years is turn your vac off, get you a 50-pound bag of play sand, turn your vac off because you don't want to suck water up into your vac, put some sand on the floor, take a bottle of water, just put some water on the floor, run your grinder over that, especially in an area where you've already prepped. That'll help unglaze your diamonds. The other thing you can do is, if you can get away with it, don't get me in trouble, but take it out on the asphalt, turn it on for about 30 seconds, it will unglaze your diamonds. If for some reason you can't do either one of those things, will you grab that Dremel tool right there? I suggest a Dremel tool. If I was Dave's Surface Prep of Denver, I promise you, this little $30 tool, I'd have a ton of them. This is called a Dremel tool, and I have a barrel sander on it, and it's just, you charge it on a little pad, and I can turn it on. I can just, actually, I'll show you guys what I do. If I got in this situation where I didn't have water or sand, or I couldn't take it to the asphalt, I literally just turn it on and do this, and take the glaze off of them, put them back on my machine. If your diamonds are glazing, that means you're probably doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that diamonds are garbage. It usually means that your machine's spinning too fast, you have too much head pressure, so you have too many weights down, or you've paired the diamond hardness with the wrong, so this is hard concrete. We've said that a bunch of times. If I put a hard diamond on this and try to grind, it'll probably grind for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, it's just going to spin across the top of the floor and glaze the diamonds. Because, like Tom was talking about, this metal glue, which we call matrix, it's just a metal glue. If it's not wearing away, exposing the diamonds, it's not cutting anymore. So when it stops cutting, it tends to pick up the curing compounds and the sealers and whatever admixtures are in the concrete. But those are a lot of good ways to solve it. So if your diamonds are glazing, I had a guy call me last week that had that issue, and he actually had this machine right here. He had all 4 weights on. He has speed way, way, way up, and he was on a super hard floor, and he had medium diamonds. He didn't have any other diamonds, so to get him through till he could get the right diamonds on order, had him take all of his weights off and turn his speed way down. That solved his problem. And then when the right bond of diamond came in, his production went way up. So if you guys didn't catch, my name's Dave Bigham, and this is Tom Griffin. You guys can call us. If you guys can chat in and ask for my phone number, my phone's on 24/7. It's on nights, holidays, weekends. The only time you couldn't get a hold of me in the past was when I was on an airplane traveling somewhere. Guess what, guys? There's no airplane traveling for me. I just drive back and forth to the office every day. So chances are, if you need me and you want to reach out to me, you can literally pick up the phone and call me at any time. I'm the first one to understand that when all the plants and the food processing and the car manufacturers, when they all close and go on Christmas break or Thanksgiving break or 4th of July, you guys all go to work. I understand that. So if you call me on December 25th, I'm going to answer my phone. So if you guys have problems or questions and you don't reach out, I can't help you, but feel free to call anytime. I'll go put this up. Tom, sorry.
Yeah. No worries. So
2 more questions, Tom.
2 more questions. What have we got next?
So when you're unglazing the diamonds with the Dremel,
Uh-huh. We do.
We do. So the first part of the question was, when you're using the Dremel tool to deglaze a diamond, are you removing some of the metal matrix
Not
from
really.
the diamond? You're really removing all of the glaze, all of the sealer, everything that's causing the issue that's on the surface of that, and you're just revealing that layer of diamonds underneath. The second part of the question was the hardness testers. Do we sell those? And we do. They're in our catalog. It's a series of different materials that you can rub on the concrete, and if the concrete is harder than the material, you don't make a scratch. And if the material that you're scratching with is harder than the concrete, it'll make a scratch. So you can run up and down the series of materials, and that tells you where your hardness is. They're great. It's always good to have around, and especially when you guys are bidding a job or looking at whether or not you want to do a job. It's really important to know the hardness of the concrete that you're going to come up against, so that you can put that in your contract saying, we did a hardness test on here, we found out it was this level of hardness, so we're going to use this type of tooling. Really spec it in. It makes you look professional and that you know what you're doing, and gives your customer a level of confidence in what you're providing. It's also important to know that just in this warehouse, the concrete was probably poured very closely together within the same day or two, but there's different hardnesses throughout this warehouse, and so it's really important to test in multiple places when you're on a job.
I want to show you guys, just to answer that question a little bit better. I dug through my tooling box, and I hope you guys can see this. The green soft bond, it's super shiny and silver. The tan 30 grit above it has lots of gray material on it. That's a sign that this was starting to glaze over. That's how you can tell they're glazing over, because it'll actually get much worse than that. You think they can see that on the camera? That's how you can tell your diamonds are getting glazed. The other way you can tell is, I tell guys, if you want to know if your grinder's cutting or if it's working like you want it to, turn your vac off for 10 seconds. If you're not making any dust, your grinder's just spinning across the top. So you know that you need to address the problem right away. That's a good key. Any more questions? You guys keep the questions coming.
Yep,
They're
we love 'em.
fantastic.
We're here for you guys. We want to make sure that you feel prepared and
Good, okay.
and knowledgeable. So I think it's a good time to run the Dash 4.
Yeah, let's do that.
Another great feature, I don't know if Dave mentioned it or not, there is dual exhaust ports on the back of the grinding head for the Dash 4. They both go into one single port for the dust collector to pull out of, but that really does maximize the amount of dust that's going to get pulled out of this machine. So Dave's going to run this. I'm going to turn the dust collector on for him.
Thanks, Tom.
We've got a run-of-the-mill chip coat down here on the concrete. It's been down for a couple of months now. Definitely cured, sealed. We've driven forklifts over it, and it hasn't peeled up. So we definitely prepped the surface pretty well.
Yeah, we
before
shot
put
blasted it
down.
first, I'm pretty sure.
Dave says, yeah, we shot blasted it. So it was very well prepared when we put it down. I believe the diamonds that are on this machine are
25s, maybe?
the super segs.
I think so.
And it's slowly cutting through that material. One of the great things that I love about the Dash 4 too is that it has, as Dave mentioned earlier, that Kevlar belt that's self-tensioning. If you're on a job site and something happens to go wrong, you run off a dock plate, you hit something in the concrete and you snap that belt for some reason, which it's made out of Kevlar, so that's a lot of force. You can have this machine back up and going very quickly rather than having to wait take it to a repair shop, have your gearbox rebuilt. It's really there to keep you in the work and to keep you doing what it is that makes you money. The shroud on the dash 4 is also adjustable. It's just Velcroed on. So as your tooling wears down or you put brand new tooling on there, you can adjust it up and down to keep that nice tight seal, to keep the silica dust out of the air. And we really recommend this machine for dry grinding.
Smooth out this big joint here a little bit.
So Dave's going to be kind of leveling out some of the concrete right now. The concrete at this part of the warehouse is not very level between the individual slab pours. So he's going to be showing off the Morflex couplers that are on the bottom of the machine.
Yeah, you want to talk about why it's jumpy?
So the Morflex couplers are in between the head of the machine and the plate, and it allows the head holding the diamonds to flex into the highs and the lows of the concrete. So why you saw the machine jiggling so much is there's such a big difference between this slab and that slab that it was missing on this lower slab with the coating and really engaging on the slab that he's on now. So you're really seeing those Morflex couplers gripping into the concrete.
You guys see the pattern it leaves? Because it's a planetary, you see the stars?
Yep. So the pattern that Dave's making, because it's an active planetary, meaning the heads are driven by the gearbox or by the motor and the Kevlar belt, you can see the star pattern that the heads and the tooling are making. Because he has the super segs on here, this is about how fast you would want to go to open up the concrete. You're not trying to get every last little inch of it. You're going to get every last little inch with your next step being the 16 grits.
Love this grinder. Questions? All right, we got questions.
I like it.
Can't hear you, Jake.
So
Yes. Actually, either one of these grinders, they probably can't see, but the joints in this building, they're not flat whatsoever. So I'll turn it back on, and right there at that 4-point, it comes up to a giant
kind of
pyramid. So what you're going to see is, because it's not flat, the grinder's going to jump, but that's just an indicator as an operator that that spot is not flat at all. So let's turn on the vac.
What tooling would you use to do that leveling, Dave?
It just depends on, most of the time, a 16 grit is my go-to, either a soft bond or a medium bond most of the time. And there's a lot of talk about matching the right tooling. Sometimes if I'm trying to take a lot of concrete down, a grinder's not really a bulk concrete removal tool, so it could take a while. So National pays me a ton of money, like $5 an hour. So if they really wanted me to flatten this, I would choose a softer bond diamond so it would cut faster, because I think that the labor savings would probably, because I'm such a high paid $5 an hour guy, the tooling, even though it's going to wear away quicker, would cut faster. So you also have to be aware of that factor when you're choosing your tooling. These super softs cut really fast, but they don't last very long. But if I really had to get this joint flat all the way across there, I might choose a softer bond just to speed the process up, even though my diamonds wouldn't last as long. A Scarifier is a bulk concrete removal tool. So If you're talking about a walk through the park where a tree's grown underneath the sidewalk and lifted the part of the concrete up and it's a huge trip hazard, that's when you choose to use a scarifier. A grinder is never a bulk concrete removal tool. A shop blaster is never a bulk concrete removal tool. A scarifier is a bulk concrete removal tool. So if you're trying to take up an excessive amount of concrete, then you would move away from a grinder and you would move to a scarifier with the right kind of teeth.
All right.
I'll show you guys a little bit on this section right here. Definitely not flat.
I think I've seen some rodeo horses that buck less than that machine's doing right now, Dave.
I couldn't hear you. Sorry. I'm just going to work this spot for a minute, and then we'll move it to see what it did. So if you guys can see just from the pattern, it didn't really touch this because this is the low spot. These are the high spots. So I have not ground these down to where it's even touched that coating right there because this is so high. And you can tell I could just tell by the feel, this is a super high point. So you just have to work that some more to flatten it out.
All right. Do we have any other questions or anything before we move on to the GP700?
Great questions. Love them.
All right. So I think we're going to move to the GP700, which is probably my favorite grinder in our fleet. The 3000 is a little bit big for me to move around on my own. It's not the biggest guy in the world, but the 700 is definitely one that I am very comfortable with and absolutely love. Do you want to go over it, or do you want me to?
It doesn't matter. The GP700, this is a phenomenal machine. And maybe I sound like a broken record because I get excited, but I can see that the features and benefits, I can see because I spend so much time in my life getting to this point, seeing what contractors really need for solving problems. The first problem this machine solves is I can run this off of 230 volt single phase or 230 volt three phase. Not too many of those out there. All I have to do is drop one leg of power as I'm wired into the box. It's pretty simple, guys. If I was a contractor, I have two pigtails. Here, electrician, wire that 230 single phase. Got another one over here, show up another job site. All I have is three phase. 230, here, wire this pigtail in, show up, plug it in and go. I can run this machine wet or dry. I have been selling these style grinders for 20 years. Like Tom said, these were originally designed to polish terrazzo. They've been around, I think, since the 40s. I've seen some super old versions of these machines. The first ones I sold just had big switches to turn them on or off. These now have computers in them, basically, so you can control your speed, your amp draw, you can change your direction. That used to not be the case. Obviously, the tooling and the resin pads have come along that used to not be there. But what I like about this machine is I could go and knock out 5,000 square feet with this machine just like ringing a bell. I mean, it is just amazing. You guys saw what the smaller machines did. They did something to the floor. They're moving along, but when we turn this on, it's buckle up, boys, because we're going to town.
Yep.
This thing will get it done. I can change my speed while I'm moving or before I start. You can only change your direction at rest, but I can change my speed while it's moving. Everything else, there's no adjustments for it, just your speed and your direction. So even though it has a computer, it's not complicated. Another great thing about this machine is I can actually change the pitch. You guys can't see it, but where I'm standing, I'm at the low spot of this building. It goes straight uphill. So if the water heater goes out or the roof leaks, all the water runs out my back door. But it's straight uphill. Evel Knievel will get excited because he'd go for a jump. So I can change the pitch of this machine to follow this contour. So if I was going to prep this whole floor, I would actually lower my back end down just a little bit by just stepping on this switch. If I get in there, and I could lower it down. Could also raise it up on a flat floor. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it with the cords and the hoses, but it's a pretty simple adjustment. It's this lever right here. All you do is step on it, release it, and if you guys can see it standing up like this, so if I was coming downhill, I'd have it set this way, but I prefer to push uphill and then let it come back downhill. That's just me. This is kind of a level setting. The handle is also height adjustable. I'm short, but I make up for it in width. So I like this right here because I can use my body to kind of lean into it to just kind of move it along. I don't want my handles way up here and I don't want them any lower. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this on and rip some coating off the floor.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
This machine might be really big, but it floats across the floor. When those diamonds are turning, when that head is spinning, this machine just glides like a ballerina.
I just changed the speed and turned it up.
Something to note is you're going to be watching this. Dave slowly moves the head back and forth. That's because this is a counter-rotational machine. So you have two heads that are spinning against each other. And if you don't slowly move the machine back and forth in a nice slow motion, you'll dig trenches in the concrete. So by doing what Dave is doing and slowly moving the machine back and forth, it gives you a nice even grind on the concrete surface. Another quick note, you're going to see a lot of dust on the floor left behind. The dust collector that we're using for the demonstration today was powerful enough to keep up with our other two grinders, but it is not powerful enough to keep up with the GP700.
Tom, do you think we could move the vac a little bit?
Yep.
And see if we can take up some glue over here?
Where do you want to, which way do you want to move it?
So somebody asked the question earlier, can I take up glue? So since I've re-scraped this, that's probably good. I got plenty of.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can take up some of this glue. Let's see what happens. First, I'm going to turn my speed down just a wee because I don't want to be cooking the glue. And normally I'd put water on this to keep the glue from getting hot, but let's just give it a run because we have limited time. Let's see what happens. This is not hard glue. This is wet glue. We just scraped this stuff up this morning, so it hasn't been down for very long. So it's not like it's been underneath carpet for 20 years. This is still very pliable.
Yeah, you got plenty of room, Dave.
Huh?
You've got plenty of room.
So you guys can see, if I was going to continue across this entire floor, I definitely wet it down and probably turn off the vac to break up the bigger stuff, just to keep it from getting hot and building up on my diamonds. But I've already re-scraped this. If I had to try to take up that thicker glue, it probably wouldn't have worked very well, guys. But since I had re-scraped it with the ride-on scraper, there was very little left, and the grinder just walked right through it. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Anything else we can answer?
Jake? We got the boss on the chat line over here.
We're just waiting to see.
Questions? Anyone? Bueller? 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 Anyone? Nope. Super appreciate you guys logging on. Hopefully you learned something. If you think of questions later, just call National and you can ask for either one of us or really anybody that answers the phone. National's chock full of tons of people with 20 years plus of surface prep experience with all this equipment. So chances are if you dial our digits, someone there is going to be super helpful. Tom, I sure appreciate your help today.
Thank you, Dave.
My colleague and friend. What's that?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And no, we're just happy to be here, happy to share our love of this industry and the machines and National Flooring with you guys. I think that's it for us today. Our next session is tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we're going to be showing off the latest, the greatest, the Viking ride-in scraper. It's absolutely awesome. Tune in for that tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And we can't wait to see you then. Thanks so much.
Don't miss it. Thanks,
Have
you
a great
guys.
night.
Happy holidays.